Hello, everybody. So I am Nazaré Guimard, the head of the grants office. Just before saying some words about the grants office of Institut Pasteur, maybe we can come back to the summary. I know that the presentation is first saying the summary of what will be given today as a talk. Yeah, so today's presentation will be first about the grants office. Second, about what is a grant, myths and truth. Third, who are the founders, how to read a cold text, evaluation process and evaluators, main sections of MSCA postdoctoral fellowship proposal, and basic writing rules. The section from 2 to the end will be done by Xenia. So first, some words about the Grants Office. The Grants Office of Institut Pasteur is a highly skilled and dedicated team that provides advice and support to researchers during the whole cycle of life of a project funded by external funders, from the funding identification to the project management, including application preparation, evaluation and funding decision, and contract with funder. So our mission here is to encourage researchers to submit proposals in response to calls organized by external funders and to help them to become successful in their funding requests. So just come back a little bit, Johan. I want to say just some words that we give to the researchers of Institut Pasteur that are looking for funding opportunities. So first, the grants office support is directly proportional to the time that they provide to us. So it's important that the researchers contact us very soon in the process of the research funding. And the second message is that the grants are very competitive and only proposals that are prepared thoroughly in advance have a chance. So we ask them to contact us very soon when they have identified a funding opportunity. So they can really increase the chance by targeting the good funding opportunity and matching the funder requirements. So next slide, please, Johan. So here, the organization of the grants office. So I am the head of the GO. Just to come back to the team, so we are highly skilled specialists in the funding teams and opportunities and project management. Many of the team members have a background in science, some with a PhD or in European affairs. As an example, I have a double background with a PhD in analytical chemistry and an executive master in research management from the University of Dauphine. And I had an experience in the national funding agency called ANR as a scientific officer. And now I am the head of the grants office. So the GO is divided in 3 poles following the region of the funder: France, Europe, international. And the head of the 3 poles are Johan, Maël, and Swazik. Xenia, who will make today's course, is a really important asset for the GO as a senior scientific writer. She will introduce herself later on. Next slide, please, Johan. So I won't go in details because it's not the aim of this presentation, but there are a lot of funders and a lot of funding opportunities. So we are divided in 3 poles, and the main funders, like for Europe, is Horizon Europe. For the international is the American funding agency, NIH. And for the national, it's the National Funding Agency, ANR. So there are plenty of opportunities, and to communicate properly to the researchers of Institut Pasteur, we developed many tools. Next slide, please. Tools to identify the funding opportunities. So we've got a timetable in which we regularly update the funding opportunities per funder. And this is really important because Xenia will explain later on there are identifying the good funding opportunities is really the key to write the grant properly. But it's important to know who will be the funder and what the funder will want. So we also developed the tool Grant Finder. And for that, you can identify the funding opportunities depending on what you want, an equipment, a grant for a postdoc or a PhD student, or to do a collaborative research with other teams. So yeah, this tool is very, very interesting and can give many opportunities. So I think I will stop here. I just want to say that all the informations are on Web Campus. And if you want to contact us, of course, we are open to answer all the questions about all the funding opportunities and the grants you would like to apply for. Thank you very much. So now I will give the floor to Ksenia about the grant writing.
Okay, so hello. I will present you today the grant writing session and explain how you can be successful in writing the grants. So first of all, I will introduce myself. So I'm Ksenia Bagrintsova. I'm expert in scientific writing in the grants office. So here you can see my professional experience, which is quite diversified. So I was trained as a medical doctor. Then I have done a PhD and few postdocs in the field of leukemia research in different countries. Then I was trained in the industrial property rights in the health law, and I was working as a business manager. After that, I was working in the coordinating team of the European project in Hospital Curie in Paris. So I liked it a lot because I was also involved in the writing of new grants. And I was recruited in Institut Pasteur as European project manager. And I have started here to do this activity as scientific writer. And finally, now I have a position of a scientific writer in the grants office. So here you see the very wise quote from Pericles, who was saying that having knowledge but lacking the power to express it clearly is no better than never having any ideas at all. So this is very important, and especially it is very important in the grant writing, because you can have very brilliant ideas what you want to do in the project, but if you cannot demonstrate it very clearly to the evaluator, you will have really low chance to succeed in the grant funding. So the writing a grant is hard for everyone. So I can say that it is not only difficult for the young researchers, but also for the senior researchers. It is really a very difficult thing to do, but it can be learned, and you can really succeed in this better if you will really be careful in preparation of your grants. So in this session, I will explain you what is a grant, who are the funders. I will demonstrate the evaluation process and how evaluators will do their job. I will present you also the main sections of Marie Curie postdoctoral fellowship, which can be of interest for you in a few years. And also I will introduce basic writing rules. So what is a grant? Here you see the definition of the grant. It is a quantity of money which is given by government, organization, or person for a specific purpose. So each line here is very important. I will explain why. Because the quantity of money is defined by the funding agency. So they give you the specific budget which you can use. Who gives you the money? It is important because they have a different guidelines behind why they give you the money. It should be also carefully checked in the call, and they give it for specific purpose. So when you read the text of the call, you should really look for which purpose you can use the money they will give. So I will present you some myths and truths about grants, a few of them, 3, not to be very long. So there is a myth that there are thousands of grants available. This is partially true, because if you will do your search on the internet or using our grant finder and our tables, you will see that there are really a lot of funding agencies which are giving money, but you should be really careful for which purpose they give it, because when you will have your specific project, you will find maybe only few opportunities for your project, if any, because it depends really on the topic you are working on, for what specifically you want to have the funding. Because what want the funders, why they give the money? They want really influence the researcher landscape. That means for them, it is the possibility, they're looking for specific policies, really defining the topics which can be funded to really change on what you can work in the future. Because there are always some societal challenges, as for example, now we are all facing this sanitary crisis with COVID-19, and funding agency will react to that. So they will give some money specifically for the purpose to study some research questions on that. So, and that what they want, the funders, they want that researchers will adapt to the call. That means that they give the money. For example, they want that you will work on a specific topic, and they want that you really design your project according to what they want to have as a result from you. The second myth is that grants are free money, so that you have some budget, you can do with that everything what you want. No, that's not true. It is an exchange. When you have the money, you become beneficiary, and you must comply with the rules and requirements which are defined by the funding agency. Very often there are restrictions in the cost eligibility. That means that you cannot just use the budget you have for each and every purpose you think about. So it is really very well stated in the call text. And you should report to the funding agency on your results, which are called deliverables. You deliver to the funding agency your results to demonstrate that you are really working on what you have asked for the budget. So there is also an important thing to think about before the application, because sometimes funders may want to benefit from exploitable results. You may have some patents or something, and you should consider all these intellectual property rights issues before the application. And the last myth for today, that grants are hard to get. So that's not the myth, that's true. It is really difficult to obtain. But if you could do the good science, if you target the right funding opportunity, reading very carefully the text of the call, if you match the fund requirements, and if you improve your writing style, you will really increase your chances to succeed. Because, for example, the success rate presented here for the Marie Curie individual fellowships for 2020 in Life Science panel it was very low. It is like that. It's like around 12%. Also, same for EMBO fellowships, around 15%. So you can see that there are a lot of projects which were submitted which will not be funded. Why is that? Because there is a large amount of proposals which are submitted for each call, but there is also a lot of projects which don't really correspond to the call. Because when you are reading the call text, so the really main thing you should understand what can be funded by this specific funding opportunity. And if your research project will not fit in what funder is expecting for you, it will not go, it will not become successful. So, and also what is happening sometimes, and it can be even quite often, that the quality of the proposal is low, and also then in this case, you cannot get the good score for your proposal. So please do not submit a proposal if it doesn't fit the call, if it is not well prepared, because all this will be a waste of time for you. Still, it takes time to prepare everything, even if it is not a good quality. So you will also take time of evaluators, which should go through your proposal and funding agency. And sometimes also when you are reapplying to the same funding opportunity, you should write that when you already applied. So better not to do if you don't do it in the best way you can. So who are the funders and how you should read the call text? In fact, you can see here the basic types of funding sources. It can be government giving the money, private industry, foundations, and professional organizations. As Nazare already introduced to you, the funding can come from national sources, European and international. So for the national, in France, the biggest agency for national research is ANR. In Europe, it is European Commission who is defining the topics of the calls or different funding opportunities. On international level, in the health science, it is very often NIH who can provide some money for different purposes. Sometimes in the call, the research topic is defined. So that means that you cannot apply if you are not working on a specific topic. But sometimes it is not defined. You can apply independent from on what you work. For example, as for individual fellowships, this is the case. It is bottom up. There is no specific topic you can work on what you want, and you need just to demonstrate why you need this funding and how you will develop your career. So that's why the funding opportunities, they can be different. It can be fellowships, which give you the money for your salary and some money for research, but mostly for your salary, your living allowance. There are some individual projects, but it is not the salary, but really research. There are some collaborative projects when different scientists are working in collaboration on the big projects. There are training programs and networking activities. All this is always very well explained in the text of the call, and so you should always check it very carefully. So once the funding agency will decide that they want to finance something, they will prepare a call for proposal. They are preparing this call. Usually it takes some time because it depends also for the big funding agencies. It can really depend on the policies which exist, so it will be based on that. And then they will choose the topics. They can have some committees with the scientists to decide on which topics will be the most interesting and the most important to develop. And then once it is decided and the funding opportunity is clearly defined by the funding agency, they will announce the call for proposals. At this time, the call will be published on the dedicated page in the web, so you can see it. You will see all the specific explanations, who can apply, for which purpose you can apply, how much money you can get, and for which duration of the project. It is also always very important to know how many years you will have this funding opportunity. So when it is announced, you can start to prepare. You can even sometimes start to prepare in advance when you know that it is recurrent funding opportunity, or you start to prepare when call was published. So you prepare your application, and then you are supposed to submit it. There is always a deadline. So it is really the last date, the last time you can submit your proposal. After that, the platform of submission will be closed, and you will not have any more opportunity to do anything. So you should not be very late on submitting your proposal. And after that, your proposal will undergo the evaluation process, and you will at some point obtain the funding decision. So what the funders, evaluators expect? They expect the proposals will fit the call. So there is always best match competition. That means that the proposals which correspond at maximum to what funder is expecting from the application, they will really have the best score. And this should be really clearly identified in the proposal, that evaluators will easily find everything. You really demonstrate that you are writing corresponding to what is asked in the call text. They're also looking for the high scientific quality, because your evaluators are scientists excellent in the different scientific fields. And they are also searching for high quality of the grant application, because now people are preparing more and more grant application. So it is really, the competition is becoming very rude, and you should be really the best to succeed. So I will give you an example of Marie Curie postdoctoral fellowship. Before it was called individual fellowship, now it is called postdoctoral fellowship. It is the funding opportunity which is dedicated to you in few years when you will have your PhD. And with this funding, you can have your salary and some money for the research. So to find the funding opportunity, here I demonstrate you, it is the website of the European Commission, where all the information, the main summary of what is this fellowship is published. And then you see this page, you can see that there are postdoctoral fellowships. So you open it and you check what is this, when it will be announced. So normally it should be open by the end of the June, and the deadline will be in October. So later, when the call will be published, they will really write each day, which day, on which day, and at which time the platform will be closed. So this should be really respected in the preparation of the proposal. And here you can also see already the main lines, what will be funded. And like that, you will understand if you can apply, if you are interested in these funding opportunities. So what I underlined here, it is that the objective of this postdoctoral fellowship is to support researcher careers and foster excellence in research. So you can already understand that your proposal should be about your career and how you will become excellent in the research. The postdoctoral fellowship action targets researchers holding a PhD. So be careful, that means that probably in the eligibility criteria already, if you are not yet PhD holder, you cannot apply. PhD who wish to carry out their research activities abroad also is very important point. And this, you cannot stay in the same country you are. For example, it is European fellowship. You are in France today. If you want to apply, you should move to another country. So you should find another host institution in another European country or in associated country, which will be interested to have you as a postdoctoral fellowship. And you are asked to acquire new skills and develop your career. So that means that all this should be reflected in your proposal, and you will see later how it should be addressed. And these postdoctoral fellowships are designed to help researchers to gain experience in other countries. So that's why I say mobility rule is very important. You should move somewhere. In other disciplines, so more and more the funders are looking for interdisciplinary, multidisciplinary projects and non-academic sectors. So that means that somehow your additional training in non-academic sector should be also addressed in the proposal. So who can apply for this postdoctoral fellowship? Again, you can already understand more if you will read those lines. Interested researchers submit an application together with your host organization. That means once you have your PhD, you found your host organization which can have you as a postdoctoral fellowship. It is in another country, not in France, so you can apply. And this host organization can be a university, research institution, business, SME, this is small, medium-sized enterprises, or other organization based in European member state or Horizon Europe associated country. There is in guidelines in the call text, you will find the list of countries which are eligible. So the eligibility criteria are very important, and I will explain again later why it is important. Because if you are not respecting eligibility criteria, your proposal will not be evaluated. So all disciplines are eligible. As I explained before, you can have sometimes bottom up and bottom down research topics. In this case, it is bottom up. It is you who wants to work on this topic. It is not funding agency which is deciding for you on which topic you should work. And that means that independent from discipline you are working on, you can apply for this type of postdoctoral fellowship. So when we go further on this page, we will find what does this funding will cover. So, and we see here that it will support the recruited researcher in the form of a living allowance. So the first and main point of this postdoctoral fellowship that you have your salary, a mobility allowance that you can move in another country, and if applicable, family long-term leave and special needs allowance. And in addition, you will have some funding, but it is really not a lot of money for research, training and networking activities, for management and indirect costs which go to the host institution. So this you should really well understand, because when you are deciding to go for this kind of application with your host institution, you should agree with your future supervisor that you will get this funding for your salary. You will have a salary. You will have a little bit money for the research activities, but it will not be a lot. So that means that your PI should also give you opportunity to work in the laboratory as you should, and have an additional funding for the research activities probably. So now we will go to the evaluation process and who are the evaluators. So who they are? The evaluators, they are scientists. So they are excellent in their specific field. They usually really work for specific funding agencies. So they read many proposals when there is a call which was published, and that means that they will be tired when they will read your proposal. So that's why also the quality of application is very important. English will not be probably their first language. For some, yes, but for other evaluators, it will be a third or second language. That's why also you should not be very difficult in the phrasing you are putting in your proposal. And they will have knowledge for some parts of your proposal. This is very important. So you will have, for example, for the postdoctoral fellowships, you will be evaluated by usually 3 evaluators. So it will be, especially if you are working in the interdisciplinary projects, on the multidisciplinary projects, it is not possible, it is almost impossible to find 3 evaluators who will be very familiar with your specific topic. That's why you should really think when you are writing your proposal that your proposal should be clearly written. Usually, funding agency search for the best evaluator for each proposal. How they do it? So they look for the keywords. Usually, when you are preparing your application, you have some predefined keywords which you should choose. And sometimes you can give the free keywords. How the evaluators will be attributed to your project, they will just they will match the keywords in the CV of evaluator and keywords which you predefined and choose for your proposal. They will also check in your abstracts. It's very important that in abstract also you have all the necessary keywords, because they will also check your abstract against the CV of evaluators to find the best match. When you're preparing your proposal, you should start to think as an evaluator. So you should really go to the funder's website. I already demonstrated you that there is already a lot of information. You can have really the better idea how you should turn your proposal. And sometimes there are also evaluation panels which are published, so you can have an idea even who can be your evaluator or which type of person can evaluate this type of proposals. And you will also find in the text of the core evaluation criteria. And this is very important to address, because when evaluator will read your proposal, he or she will search for this evaluation criteria to give you a score. That means that you should really address all the points which are in evaluation criteria, that for the evaluator it will be easier also to find them and to give you the best note. So once your proposal is submitted, what happens to your proposal? You submit it to some kind of platform, and then funding agency will first check your proposal for administrative and formal requirements. Very often there is an additional administrative form for the proposal. There is scientific part and there is administrative part. And at first step, funding agency will really check for eligibility criteria, because it happens that around 10–15% of proposals will be rejected as non-eligible. For example, for the postdoctoral fellowship, I'm giving you as an example, if you don't have yet your PhD, you cannot apply. So if you apply, you write a great proposal, but you don't have your PhD, you will be not eligible for the evaluation. That means nobody will read your proposal. So be careful, check always eligibility criteria for each funding opportunity you want to apply. So once it is okay, your proposal is eligible, so it will go to evaluators. As I already explained, they will choose the best match of evaluator's CV and your proposal. And evaluators will have your abstract, decide if they agree to check your proposal and to evaluate you, and then they will start to work. So they will score your proposal according to evaluation criteria provided by funders. And then once it is done, the funder will make a final decision based on this scientific evaluation and some other factors which can play also a role on some other funder expectation. I can give you later some examples with what it can be. That means that yes, there is scientific part which is evaluated by scientists, but at the end it is funding agency which will take a decision to fund you or not to fund. So evaluation procedure. It is a remote evaluation for all proposals. For example, individual fellowships, postdoctoral fellowships I have presented you, there are usually 3 evaluators which will be chosen per proposal. And sometimes it can happen that in those 3 evaluators, you will have 1 or maybe even 2 who will be not real expert in your specific field, in your specific project you propose. So maybe they will know part of this maybe less than part, but it happens that we will not experts in your field. And that's why when you're describing your project, you should be really carefully, you should do it really carefully and really think as how you can really attract the attention of a non-expert who will read your proposal, and if it will be clear for this person what you propose in your project to do. So that's why when you are writing, you write for the expert and for the generalist, non-expert. Sometimes for some kind of funding opportunities, you can recommend reviewers for your proposal, and some kind you can exclude some of them if necessary. Usually it is not highly recommended, but especially for senior scientists, it happens that they have some conflict of interest, so they can exclude some reviewers. So what is happening? Reviewers will have your proposal. They decided, okay, they will evaluate it. They will do it via an online tool, and they will again check if your proposal fits the scope of the code, because they will read it. So they will make the decision not based on the administrative criteria anymore, but on the scientific criteria, if your proposal is really in the scope of the code. If yes, it will be further evaluated. If not, it will not be evaluated. So evaluators will review your proposal according to each criterion provided by funding agency. And you will know in advance all these evaluation criteria also. So fit the aim and topic of the call in your proposal. And after that, when each evaluator will individually evaluate your proposal, they will have some kind of a meeting, and they will decide if they agree on the global score for your proposal. And after that, they will provide it to funding agency, which will give global score for each proposal based on the what evaluators said, and they will do a preliminary ranking list of proposals. And then panel meeting will decide which proposals will be funded and which cannot be funded. So what is in the evaluation criteria for the postdoctoral fellowship Marie Curie? Here you can see there are three parts which will be evaluated: excellence, impact, and quality and efficiency of the implementation of the project. You can see also that below you have a percentage, 50%, 30%, and 20%. What does it mean? That means that the score you will have for each this part will have different weights. So the most important weight will have the score for excellence part, 50%. 30% is impact section, and 20% is quality and efficiency of implementation. But don't be mistaken, if any of these sections will be below threshold, is not good at all. And today, really, the competition is very rude for all these types of funding. So you should really try to get the maximum score for each criteria. And what is inside, for example, or what they will look for in the excellence section. They will check quality and pertinence of the project's research and innovation objectives. So they will check if their ambitions and if they go beyond the state of the art. So already here you can see, if non-expert will read your proposal and you are not really well described the state of the art, he or she will not understand if it is going beyond the state of the art because they're not expert. So that's why already you should think how you demonstrate your objectives, how you describe the state of the art, and how you show that your project is really ambitious and interesting to do. So you should also very well describe the methodology you will use, because evaluators will check the soundness of the proposed methodology. So they will check if the approach you propose is interdisciplinary. If you consider the gender dimension, that means that in scientific projects now is really highly recommended. It is very important to explain if you are how you will demonstrate the differences, biological difference in between males, females. So why, if you are working only on one type of gender, you should explain why it is like that. And this is very important to take into account. And there are also other aspects which can be important. And for example, open science practices. It is also important that you give open science access to your results. And then another part, which is also here in the excellence, is not only research excellence. You see, now we go to the quality of the supervision, training, and a two-way transfer of knowledge between the researcher and the host. It is still in the excellence section of the application, but here we talk more about your career. If you will really be successful after doing this postdoctoral fellowship in this given laboratory, you should really demonstrate that your PI, that your host institution which you choose is the best place for you to be, because you will really gain an experience which will allow you to develop further your career in the optimal way. And not only you will learn, but also coming to this host institution, you will bring something. This is very important. As you see here, it is written the two-way transfer. And then also the quality and appropriateness of research and professional experience is taken into account and will be scored. Also your skills which you will acquire during your postdoctoral fellowship. In the impact sections, what evaluators will search for, they will search how you develop the measures to enhance your career perspective and employability after the finishing this project. What is the quality of measures to maximize expected outcomes and impact, and is set out in the dissemination and exploitation plan. So you should provide dissemination and exploitation plan, including communication activities. And you should also demonstrate the project contribution to the expected scientific, societal, and economic impacts. So you should demonstrate this also in the impact section. In the quality and efficiency of the implementation, they will check your work plan. Is it appropriate? If there are risk assessment which is well done, do you propose contingency plan? And what is quality and capacity of the host institution in which you will be? So you see already, just reading this evaluation criteria, you can better understand what should be inside of your proposal. I go to the next slide. And I will propose you to see now the main sections of postdoctoral fellowship, and you will see how it really fits to the evaluation criteria which we just saw before. There is really the match between the two. In fact, usually funding agency is providing the templates which you should really respect and which you should use for your preparation of your proposal, because in this template it is already written which parts you should address and which main points you should explain in which part of the proposal. So here you see that the postdoctoral fellowship proposal will consist of two parts. Part A, it is the administrative part, which should be completed online, and part B. Part B consists of two parts, B1 and B2. B1 is really the core of your proposal, which will be evaluated by scientific evaluators. It is the science, but not only the science. As I already told, for example, postdoctoral fellowship, it is also very important which supervision you will have and how you will develop your career. And the part B2, there is your CV, 5 pages maximum. You should complete your CV. You should also demonstrate the capacities of hosts to complete the table. You should address if, the questions if there are some ethics issues. They will be not evaluated, but just in case you should really already think about if there will be some ethics issues later. And if you go to the specific kind of postdoctoral fellowship, sometimes there are letters of commitment for host institution, but not for all of them. So it looks like the B2 is not really evaluated. That's not completely true, because when evaluators will read your B1, so they will really carefully check your B1 to give you the score for each criteria. For example, they will check also your CV. So CV is important because when they will assess your possibility to be well trained and to become successful, they should know already who are you. So they will check your CV. It is not, they will not give you a score for your CV, but your CV really should be in the context of the proposal you propose. Same for the capacity of the host institution. It is not a scoring for the capacity of the host institution, but they really check it is kind of eligibility criteria if the organization to which you want to go for your postdoctoral fellowship will be the good place to do the project you propose to do. So now we will check more carefully what is inside of each section in the part B1. It is, as I told already, the core of your proposal for postdoctoral fellowship. And what you will find here, you will find the section 1 will be excellence. So as we saw, section excellence will be really the most important section, but don't forget all others, but really important to be the best in these sections already. So it is starting by the quality and credibility of the research innovation project, level of novelty, appropriate consideration of inter and multidisciplinary and gender aspects. So what you put inside of this section? You should describe the state of the art and your objectives and overview of the action you propose to do. You should describe the research methodology and approach you will use. You should demonstrate originality and innovative aspects of the planned research, interdisciplinary aspects if relevant, and gender dimension if relevant. So you see already we find again the same points which were in the evaluation criteria. And when you will write all these sections and subsections, you should really address everything which was important to evaluator to find out. And also, as I already told, you should think about that one person who will read your project will probably not be so expert in your field. So when you describe the state of the art and the objectives of your project, really put it in the context of importance of what you propose to do. So the grants office has performed own study of different projects which were submitted at the Institute Pasteur, and they have identified some weak points which were quite often observed in the applications. And here I propose you to see what can happen, why your scoring can be not so high as you wish to have. For example, if the methodology and the effects of the project are not clearly discussed and considered. This is really the lines which were written for some by evaluator who decided that methodology which is described in the project is not clear. Why is not clear? Again, it can happen that it was not really clearly addressed and you didn't tell exactly what you will do, but it can happen also that the person who was reading was not expert in the field, and because you just briefly mentioned something, they didn't understand what you and how you want to do. So the project objectives are vaguely described and not explained in detail. Again, it was not clear to evaluator what are project objectives. The novelty of the objectives of the research not sufficiently demonstrated, and the multidisciplinarity and interdisciplinarity nature of the project insufficiently highlighted. You see, they are really searching for this evaluation criterion in your proposal, and if they don't understand some of these points, they will not score you well, and they will write it was not clear, it was not sufficient, it was not well explained. So next subsection 1.2 is quality and appropriateness of the training and the two-way transfer of knowledge between the researcher and the host. So again, as you see here, and as I already explained, this is about your career. It is not only doing the research project. It should be an interesting topic, good project, because you should learn from that. Your scientific level should be better after your postdoctoral fellowship. But it is also about what exactly, which exactly new knowledge you will get from the host institution, and what you will bring to this host institution, which knowledge and skills you already have to bring to them. All this should be really well described in the proposal. And weak points which were observed by grants office, it was training and transferable and complementary skills is not sufficiently discussed, because for your career is not only important to do the bench work, you should also start just to learn how to write the papers, how to write the grants. All these are transferable and complementary skills, which will be really important for your future career. Knowledge transfer from the host to applicant is not sufficiently outlined, so it can happen again that it is not sufficient. Insufficient information is provided regarding the additional new knowledge that the researcher will bring to the host institution. It is not easy point to address, because it means that when you come for your postdoctoral fellowship, already you should know something which you bring to the host lab. So really something to think and something to describe in your proposal. The next subsection is quality of the supervision and of the integration in the team and in the institution. Here you describe the qualification and experience of the supervisor and hosting arrangements. That means when you want to apply for this postdoctoral fellowship, you should really well think where you want to go, with whom you want to work, and where you will really learn something. And if you was thinking about that before the starting to write your application, you know already the main lines why you choose this supervisor, it will be very easy for you to address this point in the proposal and to say, this is the best supervisor in the field. He or she has trained already a lot of students, so it will be the best place for me to learn. Same for the hosting arrangements. When you come to this institution, what you will have for your research activities, for your complementary skills, what can you learn during your stay in this institution. So which weak points were observed? The measures to facilitate the integration of the researcher in the team institution and in different areas of expertise and disciplines are not adequately defined. Because it can happen that you come to an institution, you don't know how to do what to do, and there is no any help from the institution. So it is not good. They see it as a weakness, so it should be addressed in the proposal. Tutoring activity of the supervisor insufficiently detailed. So you should really explain how you will interact with your supervisor, especially if it is very senior supervisor. Maybe he or she doesn't have that much time, but you should really think about it in advance and well describe it in your proposal. Training measures are described in a very general manner, insufficiently detailed, not appropriately tailored to the needs of the researcher. Or the researcher involvement in the training activity is not clearly stated. So for evaluator, was not clear what kind of training you will have in this postdoctoral fellowship and how it will be done. As you see, very often it is really insufficient, not clear, not detailed. And the next section is potential of the researcher to reach or reinforce professional maturity and independence during the fellowship. Then it can happen that it is not sufficiently demonstrated that proposed training will really contribute to the researcher's professional independence, and there is a lack of sufficient detail regarding how the fellowship will reinforce the professional development, maturity, and independence of the researcher. And this criterion will be evaluated by evaluator in accordance with your CV. That's why I told, for example, your CV, even in our section B2, but evaluator will check your CV to see if really this postdoctoral fellowship you're asking for is the best match for you. If your CV really demonstrates that by doing this postdoctoral fellowship, you will become successful. So you should really think about what you put in your CV and how you put everything together. So in the impact section, it is about the career perspectives for the researcher after the fellowship. So you should think about your next plan, what you plan to do. Quality of the proposed measures to exploit and disseminate the action results, because for European Commission is always important that you disseminate, you explain your activities, you publish, you have a patents and all this. And quality of the proposed measures to communicate the project activities to different target audiences. That means that more and more scientists are asked to target different audience, scientific stakeholders, general public, to explain that research is important, why it is important, and why it should be funded. Because European Commission is giving money which were taken from the taxes of people living in abroad. So general public should really well understand why now this money will go to your project. So why it will be important. And weak points which were observed in this application can be that the exploitation of the project outputs not sufficiently addressed, insufficient description of actions to enhance future researchers' career prospects, measures and strategy to communicate the scientific results to different targets are not sufficiently described, and the dissemination to a wider non-scientific audience, so general public, is not sufficiently addressed. So all this is important, well described in the proposal in a very clear way. The third section is quality and efficiency of implementation. Here it is about your work plan, what exactly you will do in the project. And what they will check, that the amount of person months you put in the project, how long you will work on this given project, corresponds to the amount of work you propose in your proposal. It will be about your person month. For the postdoctoral fellowship, it can be 12 to 24 months. So you can be ambitious in your project, but don't be over-ambitious, because somebody who will read your proposal will say, it will be difficult to accomplish in 24 months. So you should be really carefully thinking about what you can do in this time frame, how you will do, and explain everything very clearly in your application. There are also different possibilities to do it, which you will learn in the next sessions presented by the Grants Office as the Gantt chart, work packages. You can divide your work plan in different parts and how it can be done. What are deliverables? What are milestones? How your project should be designed? All this you will hear in the next sessions prepared by the grants office. So I suppose in October, November, you will have this, and it will be really about project design and how you should address it in your proposal. This is very important to understand because it will really help you to develop your proposal in the best way and to obtain your finding you want to have. So appropriateness of the management structure and procedures, including risk management. So you should really explain in your proposal how you will be organized on the day-to-day basis, how you will discuss with your supervisor, how your main results in the proposal, which you write, I will do this, but how you will prove it to the agency later that you have done this and that you are efficient. That's why you should understand what are the milestones, deliverables in the next trainings, and then you will be able to guide your evaluator through your work plan which you propose, and it will be clear for them how you want to do it and how you will address any possibility if you have any problems, what you can do. The risk management is very important because when you describe your work program, you should already think in advance, you should anticipate the risks, and they can be research risks that in your project you're not obtaining your results at given point, or your idea was not the right one. What you will do, you should propose then plan B, so how you will do, what will be your mitigation plan. And that can be also administrative risks. If you plan to go to the company for some secondment and it is not well working, so what will be contingency plan? What you can do? So all these parts should not be neglected, because if you will neglect them, you will not have a good score from the evaluator. Also, the appropriateness of the institutional environment, infrastructure should be well described, because you should describe to which institution you go, what you will have in this institution, why it is the best place for you to go, what will be provided by host institution, which kind of research and training activities in addition to your project on which you will work, what you will have. You should also highlight particular facilities and infrastructures if they are related to your project. There's no reason to explain everything which will exist in your host institution, but if you will work with specific platforms which are there, you should really tell, we have this platform, I will have access to this platform, and it will be really good for my project. So the weak points observed where allocation of tasks and resources is not sufficiently described. That means that what was described in the project is not clear how it can be achieved and done. The risk analysis is not sufficiently developed, so that is really important to think, to anticipate the risks you can have. The contingency plan and risk management are insufficiently considered. The strategy and measures to ensure progress monitoring for project supervision and monitoring is not described in sufficient detail or inadequate, and the work plan description is limited. Milestones and deliverables are vaguely described. So to describe it in the best way, you should understand already yourself what is this and how it can be done in the optimal way, and then you will do it as you should do it, and you will have your funding, your grant. So now we will come to the last section of today's session. It is basic writing rules, which I want to present you. It will be general, and it can be applied to any call, any grant you are writing. So first of all, the secret to editing your work is simple. You need to become its reader instead of its writer. And that's why I also say always you should be on the place of evaluator. Once you wrote something, just try to read it as evaluator will see it. Also give it to your friends, to your colleagues to read it. Maybe they will find certain points which are not clear for them, and it will help you to become more competitive because your application will be better prepared. So for any call, what is very important is already told, and I will always repeat it. You should match your idea to the funding opportunity. You should read carefully the call documents. You should check and double check the eligibility rules, because otherwise you will not be just evaluated at all. You should print the proposal template, and you should really use this to start preparation of your application. because it will guide you also through the proposal preparation, what you should address, which main points you should address in your proposal. And you should also print out the aim of the call and the evaluation criteria and have it just on your desk. And when you are writing, you really check, are you still responding to the aim of the call? Are you responding to the evaluation criteria? And will it be easy for evaluator to find all this information? So just help them to find essential information and you will succeed because they will just give you the better score. So you write for the expert and not so expert. That means that the story which you will tell in your proposal should be really communicated with some kind of energy and excitement. You should really by matching your idea to the funding opportunity if there is predefined topic. For the postdoctoral fellowship, there is no topic, so you can do what you want. But to impress the evaluator, you should to demonstrate that this project is important. You should really well describe what exists already in the field, which is the need in the field, what should be done in the field, and how you will address it. You should also always demonstrate the feasibility of what you will do. The feasibility should be also in the time frame you have. If you are applying for 2 years grant, it is not the same amount of research you can do as in 5 years or in 1 year. You should think about that. The budget you have, as I already told, for postdoctoral fellowship, you don't have that much money for research. You have mostly your salary. So if you will have some very expensive methods to use, that means that your host institution, your host laboratory should provide you this opportunity. Your story, your proposal should be written as a story because evaluator, as I already told, they will be tired. They're reading many proposals. So if you are not standing out from other proposals, they will not be so interested to read it. So they will just score you somehow because they should do their job, but they will not be excited and you will not have a good score. So you should really write in the logical, orderly, simplistic manner. You address point by point everything which is asked in the template, which will be asked by evaluator when he or she will check your application. And you should really make your key messages easy to understand. Don't use the difficult phrases, be simple, and just really well address everything they will search for later. So when you start to write, how to do it in a logical, orderly, and simplistic manner. It is very easy, in fact. You just start with a problem to address. Your main goal, it is a broad statement with your vision to solve the problem. The main goal can be really broad. It doesn't mean that you should do it in the frame of your project. But you have objectives. Objectives is really what you will do in your project, and they should be focused on the outcome, what you want to get as a result. So you don't just do a mouse model. You really say, I want to have mouse model to have answer to this question. Methodology. So you describe how you plan to achieve your objectives, what you will exactly do, how you will do it, in which time you will do it, and what is needed for that. And then there are some additional training things in the proposal, as for example, for postdoctoral fellowship, you should address also the impact, training, dissemination, communication, and you should write your CV in the best way, all things like that. And all this is important. So problem or unmet need you will address in your project. That means that when you are writing, if there is a topic to which you should really address your project, you should write it in that way that it corresponds to the funder's aim, topic, and budget, which you can have, as I already told, also is very important, that everything is coherent. You should make a clear and well-supported statements. So if you are telling something, always show evidence to support it. You should demonstrate it with data, statistical facts, expert views, trends found in your previous results, references. When you are saying something, you should really always say why it is like that and why you say it. You should provide facts. What is the problem? Why does it exist? Who is in need and where? And what will be different and how if the needs are met? It is expected impact of your project. So you should really formulate the problem to be addressed at the beginning of the text, because if you do it too late, you lose the attention of the reader. So you should really briefly mention this is that, and then you say what is the problem, and then you can develop more additional details. Also, you are very often you are really limited with the space you can write. For example, for this part B1 we were talking, I was really longly talking about it, but this is only maximum 10 pages. So you imagine on 10 pages you should put everything, your scientific project, how you will do it, why it is important, and also how you will do after, and why your career will become successful after the end of this project. So it is a challenge. The goal, what is the goal of the project? It is a broad statement, your vision how to solve the problem. It can be idealistic and not necessarily reached in the time of the project. So it is something really general. You put it in the context, your objectives, what you do in the project, you put in the context of the main goal. The objectives are realistic steps to achieve your goals. What you will do to have what? To have what it is outcome. So when you write objectives, you should use active action verbs to develop. Your objective can be to develop some new model, to understand some mechanism of something, to increase something, to identify, to create. All this should be in active action verbs. Your objectives should be validatable, clear to everybody with basic knowledge, because again, we're coming back to the non-expert. You should explain well why it should be done like that. And they should be smart. That means that they should be specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. Again, if your project is 1-2 years, it is not a project of 5 years. So be careful. Focus on the outcomes versus the process. You are just not developing a mouse model. You are developing it to understand something. So go really always further than just methodology. Because your methodology will be in the methodology section. It is another section to address how exactly you will do all this. So, methods. You provide a detailed description of the activities you will implement. You explain the rationale why you choose these methods. You build various activity phases, one on the top of another, and you provide also start and end dates for each activity. Because it happens that in the project you have some part of the project which depends on another part of the project. And if you didn't finish the first part, you cannot go to the next one. So all this should be reflected in your timelines of the project. You should also link the methods to the budget you are requesting, or if there is no budget, how you will do your project. You should be realistic. And facilities and equipment available in the host institution. It is important to explain why this methodology is the best to solve the problem you want to address. Does it build on your previous experience, your previous results, or it is results from others? And do you propose a new approach, or it is something existing already since some time in the field? So what can happen as common mistakes, and which impact these mistakes will have? If you are very longly describing state of the art, the problem appears at the end, like 2-3 pages after we see what is the problem. Evaluator will not be engaged, will not be interested, because it is very long, it is boring, and in each case you don't have that much pages to use. So be careful. State really the problem on the first page. Sometimes problem is not stated at all. Sometimes it happens that you are so happy to explain the state of the art and something else, so you don't really say on what you will exactly work. So non-expert will not understand what you are talking about. You will not be interested. If your preliminary results not clearly differentiated, that they are yours, then evaluator will not understand your contribution to the field. That means if you have already worked on something and you want to use it to another project, you say, I have done this, I have those results, I have this hypothesis based on these results, now I will work on that. It becomes clear what is your place in the field. If your global goal is not explained, so non-expert will need to do extra work to understand your position in the field, but they don't have extra time, because as I told already, they will evaluate several proposals. So probably they will not do this extra work. They will just score you with lower scoring. Objectives are mistaken with methods. The methods are not well structured. It can happen because sometimes you are so excited to do some new models that you are not really stating for which purpose you do it. What will be outcome? What will be the result of doing that? evaluator will be again lose the interest. They will not read in details everything you wrote, even if they felt in general it is not bad. So be careful, be clear, and really explain why your project is important, how you will do it, and do it in very, very clear way. Abstract. For all proposals, you should provide the abstract. Abstract also will serve to they make the first contact with the evaluator. Funding agency usually will send them the abstract of your proposal. They will say if they're interested to evaluate it. And as I told already, there are some keywords which should be in the abstract that in order that the evaluator will be really chosen as the best match to your proposal. That means that in the abstract, you should put really the strongest key elements. It should be last section to be written. You can start with abstract just to have a more clear idea of what you want to do, but you should really rewrite it at the end, because good abstract can be only written when you have already all the proposal finished. You already know exactly why you do, what you do, how you will do it, and all this should be reflected in the abstract. And again, it will be first section to read. That means that already, if evaluator just saw your abstract and thought, it is an interesting project to read, you have already some additional points, because we are all humans. So you will have more attention. This reader, this evaluator will pay more attention to your project during reading. Don't oversell you also, because if in abstract you will just claim something very exciting and then it doesn't respond to the project, then you will lose more points, because the reviewer can become angry. So key elements of the proposal should be in the abstract. So you should state the problem to be addressed, objectives, methods, expected results, and impact. And also you should address in the abstract key points important to the funder: aim, topic, expected outcome, and impact. So think about all of this when you are doing your abstract next time. In any section, you should be concrete and show evidence. You should support any assertions you will do with evidence. You use reference, statistics, preliminary data, trends found in previous results. And as an example, I give you here a phrase. You can see the difference between the two. The first one, at the appropriate stage, when it is, we don't know. The necessary steps, which steps we don't understand, will be taken. And sufficient funds, which funds? Committed to tackle the problems arising in several research institutions. What are the problems? As a consequence of the COVID-19 confinement measures will be taken. So we don't understand here anything. If we read it differently, if we write it differently, first of all, and if we specify each thing we say in this sentence, over the next 6 months, we have the real time frame. We understand when it will be. The MISRI, it is the Ministry of Research, will provide the academic research institution. So who will give the money, to whom the money will be given? In France, with a budget of 100 million, we know how much they will give to help them finish their funded research projects. So everything becomes more clear. You see, sometimes you don't have a lot of space. So be clear. And especially if you don't have space. And even if you have space, but you put the sentence like that, somebody is reading is just lost, because they're reading, but they don't have any information. So be careful. Read as a reader and rewrite. Focus really on clarity. So cut unnecessary words, because sometimes you can really reduce the amount of words you are using. Always try to use short sentences. It is easy to understand. Use active voice. Write the strong, precise verbs. Avoid turning verbs into nouns. Avoid too many or too complicated acronyms, because if we are not really experts, we are not used to use this acronym, we'll be lost in the next page. We should go back to check what was the acronym. So don't use it. Sometimes also some people, they find the new acronyms to put in the text just to reduce the space, so don't do it. Better cut unnecessary words, but don't use too many acronyms. Keep the subject and the main verb close. So good writing is clear thinking made visible, and this is very true. You should really be very clear thinking in your head, and then you will be able to put it in very clear way on the paper. So I will just give you, we will finish, and we'll give just you here one example, how the things can be done. For example, here I show you the paragraph with about microRNA, so we can read it, and you can make your idea. Do you understand it? What is that? Is it easy to understand? Is it informative or creates confusion? Dysregulation of physiologic microRNAs, miRNA, activity has been shown to play an important role in tumoralization and progression, including gliomogenesis. Therefore, molecular species that can regulate miR activity on their target RNA without affecting the expression of relevant matching miRs may play equally relevant roles in cancer. There is information in those sentences, but it is very difficult to understand at first glance. For example, for me, I need to read it again to understand what is written here. So, and if the reviewer doesn't have the time, he or she will be lost. So they will just go through very fast to the next sentences. Is not the optimal way to write. So here I will just demonstrate you how it can be rewritten if you will take into account all possible optimization of the writing. So as I already told, you should not use nouns instead of verbs. You should avoid jargon and acronyms, vague words, which are not bringing any information, passive voice, and you should also make the distance between the subject and the main verb as short as you can, because it is much easier to understand where you have the subject and then you have the action verb. So we can see how those sentences can be modified. Changes in microRNA expression play a role in cancer, including glioma. Therefore, events that disrupt microRNAs from binding to their target RNAs may also promote cancer. It becomes really clear at first glance. You are not losing that much space in your proposal, and you are clearly explaining what you want to say. So train yourself to do it like that. And if you will be more interested to go more in details how to write, how to become more successful in writing grants, and how to make your ideas clear, because clear writing has the same importance for your papers, for your publications, and for your presentations. So here we will provide you some list of sources which you can use and where you can find some additional information if you will be interested to do it. So I hope I gave you some information which can be helpful for you in the future. So thank you for your attention. And I hope you will enjoy the next sessions which will be provided by Grants Office. So they will explain you even more in details how the project can be designed and all the things which are important in the grant writing. So thank you for your attention. I will stop the presentation.
Thank you very much, Ksenia. This was very interesting to go over the key steps.
Yeah, that's true. So if there are any questions, I can answer to the questions. So I don't know if there are any questions.
You can raise your hand. There's a little yellow hand in the upper part of the screen. So I have one question. Maybe I can start. If you have a postdoctoral fellowship or even during a PhD and you have a small fellowship to write, how much time do you usually spend on writing a small proposal? So imagine you know the you found the proposal on the grant finder, the deadline is September and we are in June. How much time?
Yeah, I would say you should start, once you see the funding opportunities, you should start really to think about that and to put something together, because what we see always happening to all kinds of the projects are changing in time of the writing. So that means that, for example, also for this kind of postdoctoral fellowships, the students, they should, postdocs, they should find the host institution. So it's also time. They should agree on with host institution on different conditions, how they will be there. They should see their supervisor. So I think it usually once you know that there is a funding opportunity, it's better to start already to do something. It's better at least to contact already grants office and to see how it can be prepared in the best way. Because also the writing person to person, it is really different. So some people can write very fast something. It doesn't mean that it will be a good quality proposal, because as you see in the proposal, there are many very specific points which can be addressed. And brilliant scientists, they can write you a project very fast, for example, but maybe it will not correspond exactly to what is asked in the this call. So it should be really as early as you can. The people should go to the grants office and start to think about their projects.
And if I may just add something to what Ksenia said, it also depends on the grant, because Marie Curie, as you can see, it needs some, like quite a bit of preparation, because you need to see your host institution and so on. But if coming back to national grants, for example, because you do have some funders which fund fourth-year PhD, for example, in France, these grants are simpler in a way to write, because it's all done online and it's more concise, so it can be easier. So the main idea, I mean, the main conclusion of this, it's better to start as early as possible, but you should also adapt to what type of grant you're submitting to.
Yeah.
There's a question.
Yeah.
There's a question by Sophie Marie Escher. Can you turn on your microphone?
Yeah, no, I just have an organizatory question. Is it possible to get the presentation? Because some of those points are really good to put next to you when you write something, to check them and not just look at the video again.
Okay.
Because some of those checkpoints are really nice to double check all the time when you write and look at with one eye to those checkpoints.
Yes. Yeah, I think it was decided.
You will get it. Yeah, you will get
Cool,
it.
thank you.
There's a question from Cody. If you have multiple funding opportunities, it's whether...
So it is worth to try for multiple opportunities that may risk to have similar deadlines. Yes, you should, because that's why also you should start as early as you can, because sometimes, yes, you have very similar deadlines to different funding opportunities, and you should try every way you can, because as you see, the success rate is quite low. So don't do it just once, because it will not be probably with very high chance it will not be efficient to do only one, to contact only one funding opportunity. Yeah.
And also, just to add on this again, from experience, we do have a few postdocs at Pasteur who have had two prestigious grants at the same time, because they have applied to both. Like the example I'm going to give you is someone who had the Human Frontier and EMBO, which are postdoctoral fellowships. And in that case, you can choose to have one, for example, for 1 year, and then you switch to the other one, because as Ksenia explained, it will depend on how much funding each one is giving to you for your salary, how much money you are getting to do your institutional research. So it's an option. It's possible, it's an option, but you should also keep in mind that it's not possible to have like two fellowship grants, because when you have a fellowship grant, you're supposed as a young researcher to spend 100% of your time on it.
Yes.
So keep that in mind as well. If it's the first time you're applying, just try to read up and but once you have gained some experience, it's always possible to recycle. It's not the right word, but maybe you get what I mean. If you have already done a first submission and it has been rejected, you should not consider this as a loss of time, because evaluators have given you the feedback on it, how to improve certain sections. So these are positive aspects, even if you're rejected.
Yeah. Yeah, it helps to write further applications. Yeah, that's true. So just do it.
And also, as you said, you will end up having a library of responses after you write a few times, scientific sections, methods, objectives, even timelines. You will already have mastered a lot of this process of thinking about it, which
Yes.
makes the next writing easier.
If I may complete, it's true that writing a proposal is also to organize ourselves, the mind, just to see what we want to do as a research. And this is also a very nice exercise. We are founded or not, and we expect to be founded. But if we are not founded, it's also a great opportunity to apply for other grants. You are not losing your time. This is the message.
There's a question by Pierre-Marie. Can you turn on your microphone?
Yes, sure. So thank you for the presentation. That was very interesting. I was wondering, actually, maybe it's a very naive question, but what types of grant is eligible for us to get help from the grant office? So if I want to move to a host institution outside of Pasteur, can I still ask for help to you? Or is it only for, I mean, because for instance, the Marie Curie requires mobility, and so I don't know, it's not relevant for me to ask the grant office to help me in that case, I guess.
Yeah, if you're leaving Pasteur to go to another institution in Europe or in associated countries, you should always check the eligibility criteria. But it's true because, you know, at the grants office, it's the limiting factor is the personnel. So we will give priority to postdocs coming to Pasteur. So
Okay,
if you're
sure.
leaving, and as you saw for example, the Marie Curie one, you have loads of information which will depend on your host institution. So our help will not be very relevant.
I can have a bit, okay, depending on that. Okay, thank you.
But in fact, it's why also we try to do this kind of trainings, because it is possibility for you maybe to ask questions to learn, but yes, we'll not be able to read your application, but we can give you some advice. Yeah.
Yeah, that's already a lot.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And also for Pasteur, it's a good thing to know that the graduate students are successful. Not immediately, but when you compute statistics, we can say so many students were able to get Marie Curies or Human Frontier and so on. So it means that you guys are good. And in your proposal, maybe in a few years, you can collaborate back with Pasteur, which
Yes.
is also the idea.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a question from Alexandre Blanc.
Yes. So I'd like to ask another bit naive question. So we talked about postdoc fellowships. What about grants or fellowships? Are there some that we can apply for during the PhD, or is it irrelevant?
No, you should. In fact, what I was insisting on, it is eligibility criteria. So usually you should be a PhD holder to apply for postdoctoral fellowships, because it is really, they cannot anticipate if you will get your PhD or not. So they don't want to put the risks on that. That's why you should be already holding a PhD type. Yeah.
Okay, but what I mean is, in the meantime, while I'm working on my PhD, are there times where writing a grant proposal will be relevant? Will I have to secure funding during the course of my PhD? That's what I mean. Should I, as a PhD student, look for opportunities besides looking for postdoc funding?
It depends, I think, on your PI, because I know some PhD students are writing the grants for the research projects. You can collaborate with your supervisor and write. It happens very often that PhD students are writing the grants with the supervisor for the research projects, not for their salary, but for the research, because for research you need also a lot of money. Yeah.
And also, like I mentioned, you know, like we have national funders, for example, maybe you have heard about it, Fondation ARC, and then you have something on cancer, LNCC, it's La Ligue Nationale contre le Cancer, for example. They do have specific funding for fourth-year PhD. So if you require this, you should check with your PI. And this one, yes, during your PhD, you can apply for it. But the other ones, the main criteria is really being an experienced researcher, meaning you have your PhD already.
Thank you.
There was.
Okay.
No more questions.
Is it okay?
I have one more question. What if you want to move in between networks? Like, what if you want to do your your postdoc in a different institute which still belongs to the network? Is this eligible for this mobility or not? Like, is this still considered as you stay in Paris, or is this considered as you are moving to someone else?
Could you specify? You mean you are in Paris, but you're moving in the Pasteur network? Is that what
Yes.
you
So
mean?
if you want to apply for a postdoc within the network, like within another Institut Pasteur in, I don't know, Laos, Cambodia, or Pasteur.
You should be careful about this because you have some funders for.
Sorry, you muted. I don't hear you.
Sorry. Like I mentioned, for example, the national funders, they will fund only if you are in the French territory. So meaning if you go to Pasteur in Guyana or Polynesia, it will be possible. But other Pasteur networks, they do not legally, are linked to Pasteur, meaning you will need to check eligibility criteria. For example, the Marie Curie EMBO. EMBO is like a club. If you go online, you have different countries which pay a contribution to this organization called EMBO. The same thing goes for Human Frontier. And for European grants, you should check the eligibility criteria, which means European country, member states and associated countries. So coming back to Marie Curie, for example, associated countries, you have Tunisia, which is in it. So if you go to Institut Pasteur Tunis, you can apply for a Marie Curie because you're doing a mobility. But it might not be eligible if you go to Cambodia, for example, because it's not part of the criteria funded by the commission, by the EC. So always check this eligibility criteria.
And you can have a call from the Coopération Internationale from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of France. Then they might be saying in the call, any countries in Africa or any countries in Southeast Asia. So really, as Ksenia and Ioana are saying, look at the eligibility criteria.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I have one question maybe also. How much preliminary data which you acquire during your PhD can you include without in a grant? Like when you're responding to these grants, are the preliminary data you put in confidential, or how do you deal with that?
In fact, yes, because it happens all the time. All scientists, they put preliminary data which are not published in the grants. Normally, yes, evaluators, they sign that it is confidential. They should not discuss the content of the proposal. That's also sometimes the reason why some scientists are excluding reviewers, because if it is some kind of difficult, they are not collaborating, they can exclude some reviewers. But usually, yes, it is. In fact, preliminary data are really making the proposal strong, because you cannot demonstrate that you are good if you don't show anything you already have. So that's you should always search for balance. Yeah.
One other question. How does Pasteur see people who are already holding positions in a big group applying for small grants? Is this a good idea, or how much independence is good in a group? If you apply for a small grant and you have your own money to do your own small research, will other PIs at Pasteur permeable to the idea? Does that help them, or you help yourself? In helping yourself, do you help them, or what?
I think it depends, because I think there are researchers who won't become independent. So to do it, they should start some kind of a different topic in the lab And that's, yes, then they should have some money to do it, because otherwise how they will work on that if it is not the main line of the lab? So it happens that the researchers, to start their independency, they do that, they ask for money, yeah. Yeah, in small, yeah, it is just normal funding, so it's not really small, normal funding opportunities they can apply, yeah.
It's good. I mean, if you have your money to do your research, it's always good. But you know, if for example you're applying to a grant and then you wish to hire someone, then you should be a bit careful, because you know the direction. Sometimes the upper management, sometimes they make decision that you cannot exceed a certain number of personnel because there are not enough space. So that's the case where you need to be careful. Or if you're buying and you're applying to a grant and they say you need a co-financing from Pasteur to buy your big equipment, or you know, so these are the aspects which you need to be careful about. But if you do not have these problems, if I may call it like this, you can apply and it's fine from Pasteur's side.
Yeah.
And maybe the other way, if you do get the approval for Pasteur to add in some money, your grant application becomes stronger, maybe.
Yep, depending on the grant, yes.
Yeah.
Other questions? Andela, go ahead, your microphone. There is a thumbs up.
Was that for me?
Yeah, I saw a thumbs up. I thought there were hands.
It was just for you because you asked the question.
Okay.
No, it's actually that's more or less my situation, what Deshmukh just asked, where I do have a permanent position in Pasteur as research engineer, but I was thinking, is it possible to have a little bit of independence in that sense? Is it possible to apply just for some project to finance my own project? And in this case, do I need to be do I need support from the boss? Do I need support? Do I have to work with another research unit? Do I have to have some support from some PI, or I can go on my own and propose, like just go with on my own and try to get some small funding just for me?
So I understand you are not, you already have your PhD and you are in a permanent position as Pasteur, right?
Yes, yes.
So
but,
you can,
but as a research engineer, not as a scientist.
Yeah, I mean, what you are talking about is basically collaborative research. So you should keep that in mind, because for collaborative research, you are supposed to have collaboration with other teams, you know, and then it will again depend on the criteria, because if you take the example of INR, for example, the national funder, when they talk about collaborative research, you can have different teams within Pasteur itself, considered as a collaboration. But other funders, they may say you need to have one entity in 3 different countries, for example. So if you have your position in Pasteur and you see a call which fits your own criteria, you are eligible to this call, you should go ahead. And just keep in mind, if you need co-financing and these kind of you know, you need to hire someone, then you should just, you know, inform your I mean, not supervisor, but the head. Maybe, you know, you have some restrictions about personnel.
I was actually mainly thinking about smaller grants where I would get a little bit of independence just for myself, you see. So not necessarily hiring somebody, not necessarily making some collaborative work. I was wondering, do you know grants like that? That are not like big grants, but that are maybe some smaller grants and so on. Like do you know of grants like this that is not Marie Curie, mobility and so on, but grants where one can keep the position, stay in the place, but have a bit of independence from the general structure?
What do you mean independence? I mean, it's kind of broad.
But in a sense, as a research engineer, obviously I have to work on the topics given to me, right? So as a research engineer, I have to work on either on the topics given by some PI or by some postdoc. I would like if I could have some time for myself to work on a project of my own. But in that sense, I have to justify my time, right? If I want to work on something, I have to justify my time. And I was thinking that maybe a good way would be to obtain some small grant and to justify my time with this. To say, okay, I have a grant and I will work on this topic.
Yeah, there are many. You have
I
to look for the call.
Does it exist? I wonder, do you have experience with something like that already or not at all?
There are small grants, but it will depend on your research topic. It will depend on the funder, but you should try to have a look on our calendar, which Nazare presented at the start, and then the grant finder where you can put do searches with the keywords on your own research field, and then if you see something which interests you, you should just contact us. Yeah.
Yes, and I have a more general question, not so specifically related to my situation. Since you talked a lot about matching idea to the call, you talked a lot about that you have to adapt. Does it mean that it's almost pointless of having very specific idea until you have a call, until you find a call? Like, it means basically that you should first find the call and then specifically define your ideas, no?
Yeah, it happens in two ways. Sometimes researchers, they have idea and they're searching for topic, so they can find this specific topic in different funding agencies, or they wait that some specific funding agency will publish something on this topic. But yes, you should, if you really want to have money for the research on specific topic, you should really search for this specific topic if somebody can give you the money for that. Yeah.
It's a good idea, for example, to regularly go on big funding agency websites and enter keywords to see if there are calls that match your topic. And you have to have a good habit of doing this. If you know the calendar time when they put out the topics, like most of the calls are in maybe before the summer or before spring, and if you go there, if you happen to have the right keywords, everybody does like this. You look for calls.
Yeah.
It's a hunting and fishing expedition as well. And there are calls that are very broad. They just say any topic, like what they call ANR Blanc. The ANR Blanc calls are open.
It's not called ANR Blanc anymore.
It's
Sorry,
not called ANR Blanc anymore.
Générique.
Générique, appel générique.
Yeah.
But you're right, it's a bottoms-up approach. So basically you propose your research and you just select the panel which will cover your research field. Yeah.
Yeah.
I see a hand, Pierre-Marie.
Yes. Sorry, a very practical question. So if I try to access the grant finder, it's not accessible for me. Is it just me, or I don't have permission?
Are you connecting from outside of Pasteur, because it's
yes.
only accessible when you put the VPN on?
Okay, all right. There, I'm okay. Thanks.
Yeah, we don't want to find grants for other people. We want to find it for Pasteur people. It's a lot of work.
A lot of people.
Okay.
Okay. What do you guys, if you have questions, you can forward them to the grants office.
Yeah.
You can use the Go PhD, the grant office PhD email. Is it going to be active as from now, Johan?
It's going to be active because we have created this for these modules, but I would prefer they send their message depending on the geographic zone, like Go National, Go Europe, or Go International. It's better. Yeah.
Any case, you go to the Web Campus, the grants office dedicated web page. I think it will be the most useful way to contact us.
And I will put a link on the graduate office to the grant office. So people who go to the graduate office, they can follow and come to you. Okay, great. So we had a good turnout. 30 people registered. There were 22 or more at some point, 26. I hope this helps everyone, and follow up in the fall, where there will be the meat and potatoes part.
Yes.
Yeah, you have to remember that this is what your PI and what you will become and what you have to do.
Yes. Yeah.
I like that. What Pericles' statement? We should put that on our T-shirts.
Okay.
Don't you give away T-shirts at the end of the training? There's no goodies.
We don't have the budget. Maybe you can, we can take the
We can
budget
write a
from the
small grant.
graduate
You and me,
office.
You can
we write a
support
small
us.
grant.
You
Buy
can be a
goodies.
sponsor.
Okay.
Okay. En tout cas, merci beaucoup. Thank you very much, Nazare, Ksenia, Johan.